J&J, what can you tell us at this point, what you're expecting in terms of timeline and efficacy and the ability to manufacture large amounts? We're talking next month sometime?
Well, we kind of have a sense of what the supply is going to be from Moderna and Pfizer. What we don't know is, are there going to be other new entrants, and will J&J get into the market? You would hope that they will. I think they would be the most likely right now. Sanofi's delayed. We know AstraZeneca's delayed. Maybe perhaps Novavax. But J&J is an experienced manufacturer with a platform that's been a proven platform. So the hope is that sometime by maybe late spring, late winter, early spring, you could see J&J moving towards the market, and they're going to have the capacity to supply the market. The bigger issue here, I think, though, is the reporting from Meg Terrell yesterday, where she reported that only about 5 to 20% of the antibody drugs that have been shipped to the states have actually been used. And I alluded to this on your show earlier in the week, that those drugs were probably not being used based on what I was hearing. What it means is that when the states are getting these drugs, they don't have the means to distribute them. They haven't set up the system. So we've made a lot of discussion this week about the challenges of getting products from point A to point B with the cold chain. And I've said I think that that's pretty solved for with our good logistics in this country. And it's going to be a last mile problem getting these vaccines distributed. The experience with the antibody drugs is not a good harbinger. And just bear in mind that the number needed to treat in terms of keeping one patient out of the hospital with those antibody drugs is 10. Lilly's going to distribute 900,000 doses of those drugs before the end of the year. That means if all those drugs got distributed, we could avoid 90,000 hospitalizations, emergency room visits. That would be substantial, and we're not using those drugs. And so it's a harbinger for the vaccines as well as we get into the next tranche of people to be vaccinated, which is going to be in the community. It might be challenging for the states to distribute those vaccines if they can't distribute the antibody drugs.
Seems like it's an opportunity, though, too, Doctor, because we know that it's going to take a while for the vaccines to really make a dent in this. And in the meantime, I mean, policymakers ought to get those antibody drugs out. I mean, there's a way of focusing on a problem, isn't there? I know it's government, unfortunately, but there's a way of doing it, isn't there?
There is, and we've been talking about this for a long time, trying to get in place the infusion centers that you're going to need. It's not an easy task. You need special infusion sites. You can't bring COVID patients into normal infusion centers. Some states like Maryland have set up special sites and have done a really good job. Other states really didn't plan for this. I think the states are resource constrained on their own, and there's probably more the federal government can do to be backstopping the states. The approach of Operation Warp Speed.
No private sector home infusion stuff? None of that? Can't you co-opt that at this point?
Exactly. I mean, that's what I've written about and talked about on your show. I've written about this in the Wall Street Journal a couple of times, using home infusion. Again, you're going to need to pay someone to do that. But there are centers like the big chain pharmacies that can go into homes and deliver this. And so I think that that's one infusion. My point is simply that I think, Operation Warp Speed really needs to plan for this, that last mile. That's going to be the challenge. We need to get these drugs into the arms of patients.
Right. Your point is that we had problems with the antibodies last mile, and we ought to be able to see that, not yet, but when we get there with the vaccine, it could be the same sort of bottleneck, and we should prepare for it.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.